Welcome to GBA Reviews. This is David from the 80s, and I'm here to give you another review today. Today's review is going to be about the Jordan documentary, The Last Dance. All right, so yesterday I actually finished the 10-part series last night. This documentary is highlighting Michael Jordan's career, essentially. It starts off when he was a rookie, goes through the injury, it goes through his first championship run, through all the coaches that he worked with, the general management, everything up to the retirement, to his second three-peat, to his retirement again, right? The one thing I really enjoyed about this documentary is it also highlighted all the people that he interacted with, right? So let's get to it. Michael Jordan is undoubtedly one of the greatest players to ever do it in basketball, right? The one thing that some of the things that I liked about this documentary is how they focused on his deal with Nike, how he didn't want to sign with them, but essentially how he took that company from like a track shoe company, which was like nothing, and then brought them to like this global phenomenon, right? Everybody wanted a pair of Jordans, right? And another great thing about it talks about how he worked with other teammates. Everybody always thought Mike was like this asshole, right? Like, let's be honest. Everybody was like, Mike was a jerk, right? But was he really a jerk? Not really. He just wanted to push people to be as great as they can be, right? He wanted to know that when that time came, would you be able to go to war with them? If you can basically go through the torment or the ridicule that Mike was going to put you through, then that means you can handle almost anything. And that's what he did to his teammates every time he stepped on that court in order to make sure that they can handle themselves, right? So the reason that spoke to me is because I've been in similar situations of that. Like when I used to play ball, like, pick up games in the park, whatever. I remember when I first came back to playing basketball, I was winded, I was out of shape. And I remember my friend was like, what's going on here? I remember you used to play real good defense. What's going on? Like, what's happening? Like, do you need me to switch? And I'm like, nah, I got it. I can handle it, right? So it's basically kind of insulting in a way, and you're just like, and it forces you to step your game up. So I stepped my game up, played great defense, and then as, you get the pat on the back. Yeah, man, that's how you do it. That's who I thought you were, right? So essentially that's what Mike was doing to other players. He would bug them and he would ridicule them, but it wasn't to put them down. It was to push them to be as great as they can be. Now, if you folded and you fell apart, that's on you, right? Not everybody was meant to be in a spotlight with Mike or be on the court with Mike, right? They also dived into a bit of his history with his father, how they had a really good connection and how hurt he was when his father passed away, when he was murdered. They talk about how his security guard took kind of the place of his mentor or a father figure in his life. A lot of things that, unless you're like an avid Michael Jordan fan, you're not going to really know those things, right? It really dived into his life a lot. And I was really surprised at how open and honest he was about the way that he felt, right? And it's funny because even at his age, when he comments on some of the things, like when he's talking about Gary Payton and he's like, man, Gary Payton never would have guarded me. Like, he didn't have nothing on me. Like, it's funny, even at his age, he still has that cockiness to him, that cocky demeanor. And it's funny, even when you hear when he goes to the practices in Charlotte, and I heard he balled some of the young dudes up, right? I think even on Twitter, one of his players challenged him to like a one-on-one, right? To see if he still got it. Good luck with that. MJ about to hit some J's in your face. You're going to look stupid. But they also, kind of touch on his gambling problems and things like that. And they talk about the flu game, the Jordan flu game, the infamous flu game, which wasn't even the flu. It turned out to be like food poisoning, right? That he ended up getting from somebody probably trying to sabotage him from a local pizza place. At the end of the day, when I was watching this documentary, I couldn't help but to think about Kobe Bryant and his untimely passing. The whole time I just sat there and I was like, the whole documentary, I sat there just thinking about Kobe because I knew Kobe was just like a doppelganger of Mike. Like, that's who he was. That's who he embodied, right? Like, it's funny when you watch this documentary, you're like, man, I heard Kobe did things just like that, right? And there's even a segment where Kobe Bryant was talking about Mike, and it kind of saddens me that we're never going to get a documentary like this for Kobe, right? I really wish that we could get a documentary about Kobe, looking at old clips, commenting on what players said about him and things like that, right? I wish that we would get that, but sadly, we're never going to get that. and due to his unfortunate passing. Aside from that, this documentary was interesting. It didn't just highlight MJ. It talked about the players around him. It talked about Scottie Pippen and how, and basically how he was getting milked out of his money. He signed that long-term deal thinking that he was going to probably get injured or his body was going to give out and he needed the money now and things like that. And it kind of bit him in the behind later because, you know, when he wanted to renegotiate his contract, they were like, you already signed the dotted line. But that caused a lot of frustration within the team, you know, because Scottie ended up taking like almost a whole season off because of to recover from an injury, a surgery that he could have had in the offseason, but he chose to have it during the regular season. So that caused a lot of turmoil within the Bulls, right? You also had Dennis Rodman and his antics and things like that kind of like he did off the court, or he wouldn't go to practice or he would disappear for days. But once you see how hard of a worker Dennis Rodman is on the court, you kind of forget about all the antics on the outside. And the great thing about it is Phil Jackson realized this, and that's why he had Dennis Rodman's faith, you know? Dennis Rodman didn't really work out with a lot of teams, and that's a lot of that has to do with like coaching staff. Not too many people can coach Dennis, right? And Phil was one of the very few people that could relate and coach Dennis and bring out the utmost best in him, right? And it's crazy when you hear Dennis Rodman talking about the whole science behind rebounding the ball. It was crazy. That man really sat there and studied the game like a hawk and really zoned in on defense. Like he was a one-dimensional player, but he really excelled in that one dimension, right? Other than that, man, this documentary is amazing. If you're a ball fan, it's definitely a must-watch. You have to see it to believe it type thing when they go through all the games, all the playoff games, his first championship ring to all the way down to his last. It's amazing. It makes you wonder if they're actually going to do maybe like an extra episode or two, maybe about his little stint with the Washington Wizards, or maybe his his little what's going on right now is him with the GM, even though he's not a great GM because his team's doing horrible and they have been for a long time already. Maybe they could look into some of those things. You know, it'd be interesting to get his perspective of how things went during that time, and probably get interviews with people that were around him during his Washington Wizard days, and also during him as a GM. You know, just getting his opinion as him as a GM, and then seeing how he sees himself as a GM, right? So if you have the chance to watch this documentary, if you're a ball fan, like if you love basketball, this is a must watch, hands down. Don't even think about it. Just watch it, right? It's an amazing series, and it makes me wonder if they're ever going to do this with any other players. I noticed that right now there's like a lot of GOAT comparisons, and there's a lot of memes and a lot of talk show hosts talking about comparing LeBron and Jordan. But once you watch this documentary, you know, you see how big that shadow Jordan cast over the league and how almost impossible it seems for somebody to fill it, right? If anybody, in my opinion, came anywhere close to basically outcasting Jordan's shadow, it would be Kobe without a doubt. But you know, like I said, it would be amazing to get a documentary like this about Kobe, but I don't know if we're ever going to get it. Other than that, like I said, if you have time in your day, you got ready. There's like 10 episodes. If I binged almost all of them in one day, you know, but it took me like 3 sittings in order to get through it. But it's a really great documentary. If you get the time to watch it, I recommend doing it. Jordan's The Last Dance documentary. It's out there. Go ahead and look for it and enjoy it. All right, so this is Davey from the 80s. This is GBA Reviews. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and that like button for more reviews. Go ahead and drop some recommendations in the comment section, and let's see if I can get around to it. Until next time, adios.